Hello and welcome to Wise Women Wednesdays. My name is Jennifer Regular, and I'm a soul-centered empowerment coach at Lighting the Path, and also your host here at the show. This is where I get to bring inspiring women from all around the world to share what lit their path, what they're passionate about, and what kind of message they're bringing to the world to be able to uplift humanity and inspire and empower you to step more fully into your power and activate your soul's calling. Today, my guest is from Virginia, and her name is Petra Monaco. She is a published author, coach, mom, and breaks the status quo for fun. As a foster kid, she knows the challenges and excuses that make. People make because she worked her way through it to become a master's level therapist. So after watching her son, though, fight for his life due to a rare genetic disorder and 3 liver transplants, she helps creatives and multi-passionates clarify their direction and set goals on the road to their dreams. Acknowledging what is holding them back and eliminating the excuses is the freedom that they're craving. Through coaching, consulting, and accountability, Petra helps you dive deeply into the heart of things in order to discover your next steps and inspires you to see your own personal framework so that you can break free from fear, doubt, and overwhelm. Today, I'm so excited that she's here to show her own unique form of goal setting that goes beyond the so-called SMART method. So welcome, Petra. It's so wonderful to have you here today.
Yes, thank you so much. I'm excited.
Yes. So tell us, obviously, you've been through so much as a foster kid, navigating all those kind of systems, and then having a son with a rare genetic disorder. And I'm sure that's brought up a lot of ways of thinking about the world and what it's lived in, what's important, and also how to keep yourself in your spirit intact through it all. So share a little bit first about all of that. Like how did you do it?
So that's the magic question because I don't know. One of the, and one of the things is like I just always had this odd thing of being optimistic. There's a way.
Yeah.
Like I just an innate feeling and knowing that there is a way. I just had to figure it out, but I didn't know how to figure it out. Like growing up in foster care, there's and again, no matter what upbringing you have, you receive messages from your family, your friends, from school, the system, of what you can and can't do and how life should be and what you need to do to be a productive member of society, like all of those things. And as a foster kid, those messages were a little bit more challenging to maneuver because I already had a stigma of being a reject of society, right? Like foster kids are not looked at in an amazing way. We are discarded. And so I had to maneuver through those messages and figure like, I am not worthless. I'm not undeserving. I'm not garbage. Like I had to really dive in and start to believe in myself, which isn't as easy as some may make it out to be. You know what I mean?
Yes.
And
yes. And so just really drawing on that inner strength and basically parenting yourself. And
I parented myself probably more from 15. Like I graduated high school at 15 and became an adult and had to parent myself through my late adolescent years. And then I had this crazy idea to move to a new country I knew nothing about.
Wow. So where were you and where did you move to?
So I'm from Germany, born and raised. And at 18, love is blind, we're young and dumb, kind of a spur of the moment, nothing ties me down. I decided to follow the love at the time and flew to the States and been here ever since.
Wow. So what drew you to Virginia?
So my ex-husband and I had a child together and he hadn't seen them because he had been stationed over here from the time I was pregnant until, or he was born. And so he was already here. And I was like, well, if I'm going to go back home, I'm going to stop here first. And so he can see his kid and be like, here, by the way, this is your son. Bye. That's not what happened. It's like, here's your kid. And he's like, you want to get married? And I was like, okay, why not? and so that's sort of like how I do everything. why not?
Why not? Yeah.
Start a business? Why not write a blog? Why not write a book? Why not make art? Why not do all the things? But because I don't like structure, I need structure. I don't like structure. It just became like really, really challenging to follow my own dreams and overcome those messages I've mentioned. You know, even he was like, well, you can't have the cake and eat it too. And I'm going, well, why not?
Yeah.
Why can't I have that? Who says I can't have that?
I mean, if you're creative and a multi-passionate, there's just no other way to live.
But you can't sacrifice yourself. I wanted to make art, I wanted to write books, and I wanted to help people. Yeah. I knew those three things. Without question, I knew those were part of who I am, and that's what I wanted to do. Yes. My challenge was, how do I make that happen? How do I do that, right? And you've mentioned, we all know SMART goals. We've heard of the acronym, probably in high school, right? Yeah. Don't ask me what they stand for because I don't love them, so I don't remember them.
Too much structure.
Too much structure. And so I had ended up, after leaving my job as a therapist, I started my coaching business, and I just didn't resonate with the SMART method. I'm like, there has to be a better way for me to set goals that light me up, that excite me, that makes sense to who I am. Yeah. Right? Because aside from all my trauma, I am probably neurodivergent. And so we don't do things like everybody else. We're so different in the way we function. And I had hit sort of a low in my business. I was struggling to pay the bills and, you know, the typical sob story, if you will, like just everything was just really, really hard. And I'm like, something's got to change. And so I started writing a letter. And I wrote a letter sort of like, okay, what would a year from now look like for me? Yes. Right. And all of a sudden I'm like, well, I'm writing books and I'm making coloring books. Like all these things came out of me in this writing process. I'm a big fan of writing uncensored. Yes. And so I just started writing of what I wanted. Again, writing books, coloring books, helping people. Whether that's in coaching or even being a technical support person, because I have this weird brain that does both. So I just started writing off the things that I wanted to do. Yeah. And then I started writing of who I wanted to be. Like, who do I need to be in that process to write that book and to make these coloring books? And I needed to be something that shows up for themselves without question. And I realized, well, I don't have a problem doing that. I earned my college degrees online. So I'm pretty self-disciplined. Like I don't have a problem being self-disciplined. It's all the other stuff again. I'm like, okay, being confident that I know what I'm doing. I know what I'm talking about, and I can help other people do that as well. And so as I'm writing this all out, and one of the things is, and I was single at the time, single parenting my two younger ones. And I was like, and I want coffee in bed. And so I wrote this big 5-page thing of all the things I wanted to be doing half. The books, the coffee, the coloring books, the business, all the things. And then I circled them, and those became my goals. Because now I was like, oh, these are literally from like deep within, like really from the center of who I am, because I just allowed it to go. Let's just own that and gave myself permission in the process of embodying these different things that I wanted to do so that I could eat the cake and have it too, right? Yeah.
So just opening up to the flow of what was ready to be birthed from you.
Yeah. Yeah. And then, but still sort of like, you know, because if you're in the online business world, there's like marketing tactics of what you need to be doing and how you should be doing it. And I'm a big fan of listening to your intuition. It's one of the reasons my son is still alive today, because I trusted that unapologetically. And, you know, people are like, oh, you need a YouTube channel. I'm like, but I don't like video. You need to do Facebook Lives, but I don't like video. Right? Like, and I've tried, and it's not that I didn't give it a shot or a try. It just, I mean, I can do it here, obviously, but it just doesn't, from my own business. Yeah. Doesn't make sense. Coaching on Zoom for me doesn't make sense. So just really honoring, trusting my own intuition and be like, this will work for you. And this is how you can have the cake and eat it too.
Yes.
Makes sense. But you have to, through the writing process, you get clear on what your be, don't have goals are. Then you circle them. And so now you have a list. You have a list of all the things that you want to be, do, and have. And I make it in columns because they're not necessarily the same, right? My be goals are not necessarily my have goals.
Right.
You know, I want to be a successful entrepreneur is something who I want to be.
Yes.
It's not something that you purchase at a store. It's something that you are.
Exactly.
And so I had to figure out, okay, the do goals are a lot easier to make happen because you can structure them. There's that word again. A little bit more clearly.
Okay.
And from there, you have to then decide, okay, when do you want to make them happen? And I'm a big fan of starting today with where you are and not waiting 3 months. But sometimes it just makes more sense to, like, if you're book writing and coloring book, for example, the book was more immediate. I'm like, okay, I have 90 days for this book to happen.
Okay.
Giving yourself a deadline. For creatives, that is really, really important and motivated to have a deadline because now you have worked something towards too.
Yes.
And you're able to see the end goal. And so my goal set it's in a year span instead of 3 to 5 years, because again, that's too far away for us. We need shorter time periods, but the shorter time periods build on each other. And so in a year span, we can do a lot of things.
Oh, yeah.
Right?
Yes.
So in the first 3 months of that, I had my 3rd book published.
Wow.
Started this process for my coloring book, which was published 6 months after that.
Wow.
And so just being like, okay, I give myself a deadline. Because I know how I work and I'm pretty self-disciplined, I know what I can do every day. So you do have to get logical and strategic about how many words can you write in a day. If book writing is a thing, how many words can you write in a day while still meeting all of these other obligations that you have?
Oh, yeah.
Family, business, and any kind of like that. All right, I have about an hour every day that I can write. Or you can say, well, I want to write my book to be 50,000 words. And you break that down into how many words a day is that? By doing a little bit of multiplication, 50,000 words by 90 days or something like that.
Okay.
Oh, I only have to write 500 words a day.
Now it's not so bad.
That's not so bad because the average blog post is, 500 words. If you can write a blog post a day, then you can write a book in 90 days.
Wow. That's an amazing perspective, and not just a perspective, but something that can really turn your vision into reality in a short time.
Yes.
As long as you make the decision to do it.
Yes.
Because why not, right?
Right, why not? It's so challenging to see long-term goals because people like me get bored, right?
Yeah.
Like it's like, oh, that 3 years. First of all, we change our mind all the time.
Oh, yeah.
We make new decisions on new goals or new things and go, oh, this doesn't really work. Like I started a video challenge, but I would record a video every day from my YouTube channel because I wanted to challenge myself. Well, 6 months later, I was like, I'm done.
Yeah. I can relate.
And so I made a new decision. Okay, this isn't working for me. We're going to put pause until I figure out what's next. And again, I went back to my writing process. What does a year look like from now? And that's how my podcast was born. And I just kicked it off not too long ago. So now I have a podcast and that feels so much better, right?
Yay.
So again, my goal process is you can set goals anytime. You do not have to wait till December. You do not have to wait till January. You do not have to wait until the beginning of the month or at the end of the month. It can be literally any time. Sit down with that piece of paper, write it all out, circle your be, don't have goals, and then be like, okay, this goal I want to happen in 90 days. This goal will 6 months. And I wouldn't necessarily go beyond that because by 6 months, you might change your mind. You might you might come up with something different. And if you're creative and motivated, you have ideas all the time. And so you have to choose, like, are you going to incorporate that?
Yes.
Or are you going to put them aside, make a list of all your ideas, like with an idea book or something? sometimes I jump on them and disregard everything else, and my goals are like out the window. I have to recollect myself going, oh, does this make sense for where I want to go in my life?
Yes.
And how can I incorporate that?
Yeah, that reflection is so important. We don't give a lot of time to that usually. We just want to go and do it and get it done. But the reflection is really important to see whether it really is aligned with your values, passions, and interest, and how you're wanting to move forward. Does it support the mission that you're on?
Yes, absolutely. So I actually recommend doing a review, reset, and reflection, the 3 R's, every 90 days.
Good one.
Even though you're setting goals for a year, doing those 90 days reflection will really allow you to tune in like, oh, what's changed? Because you're going to change through the process. You're going to grow, you're going to expand, you're going to find some more resistance, and you're just going to be like, oh, well, this doesn't really align anymore. And so you have that time to marinate on like, this isn't working. Why is it not working? And it could be that you're not ready to push that comfort zone. And that's for you to decide like, okay, I'm not ready, and you put it off, or like, you know what, I need to just do it because why not?
Yes. Yeah, and that's something to understand too, is that when we start creating that momentum, by the law of physics, it's going to create some resistance. It's just the way things work. And understanding that doesn't mean that you're on the right track or it's stuck or it's too hard. It actually means that you're actually moving forward, that this is working, and to not quit 5 minutes before the magic happens because you're on the right track.
Yes.
Right? Yeah.
And again, I'm a big fan of tuning in with who you are, because some resistance isn't true resistance. It's just, it doesn't work for who you are.
Yes.
And I say that because, again, with the YouTube videos, I recorded videos every day for 6 months. And after 6 months, this doesn't work for me. Right? But then I was like, well, 6 months later, I was like, well, wait, maybe I should do a podcast. And I marinated on it and I wrote about it. And I'm like, yeah, podcast probably makes sense. And before I knew it, I had 3 months worth of podcast episodes recorded.
Woo,
and I was like, this is it. This is the thing for me. And but you're only going to learn that by being clear of what you want to do.
Yes.
Of what you want to have and who you want to be. And then show up for it.
Yes. You keep showing up for it.
You can't just write it out and circle it and be like, okay, now what? Like, okay. And you're going to now have to, all right, this is what I have to do in order to get there, right? Yes. The book is not going to write itself. That podcast isn't going to write itself. And coloring books aren't going to create themselves. So you have to show up and do that. I do the work. And you do it in a way that works for you. I'm a morning person. A lot of people might not be. So if you're an afternoon and evening person, well, then that's where you tap into that magic.
Yes. And I like the way you called it a challenge too. You like to challenge yourself, and that's what makes it fun, right? It makes you want to do it too.
I'm very competitive.
Yes.
And I'm my own biggest competitor.
Yeah.
Right. Because we are our own worst critic. We are the only person that's holding us back. Ain't nobody else holding me back from doing anything. It's me. It's the stories I tell myself about why I can't do something.
Yeah.
And so you have to challenge yourself to be the bigger person of yourself, to be that person that you want to be. And that can be really, really hard. But if you make it fun and make it a game and become competitive with yourself, you can write a book in 2 weeks.
Believe that. Yeah. So what happens then when people feel overwhelmed or when they're in fear and doubt, and how do you help them break through all of that?
So one of the things, take a deep breath. Just take a deep breath. You have 24 hours in a day. You don't have to do everything in those 24 hours.
Yeah.
Like, I don't write a book in a day. Could I? Maybe. I don't know. I haven't tested that one yet. But you don't have to do everything in a single day. I am a big believer of choosing for those 90 days, 3 to 5 goals that you want to work on.
Okay.
And then break them down into as many steps as needed to get there, so that you can then focus on 3 to 5 most important tasks 5 days a week.
Nice.
You want to take 2 days off.
I was just thinking, only 5 days out of 7. That means I get 2 days off. Imagine
Two
that
days
as an
to rest,
entrepreneur.
2 days to rest,
Yeah.
2 days to recharge, 2
Mhm.
days to just kind of step away from it, because we're so close to our projects. We are
Yeah.
so close to our goals and everything involved. We need to be able to step away and get a break, to just kind of recover, recharge, and rest. Because
Yes.
after those 2 days, you like, especially if you're coming onto a stumbling block and you're stuck and frustrated, if you take off, the solution will come to you. You just have to give it that space.
Yes.
And so for me, exercise is a really big thing. I love
Mm.
being on the trail outside in nature, and
Oh, yeah.
whether I'm running or taking my dog for a walk on the trail, that is where I get my everything, my solutions, my ideas. Like, it just kind of, ooh. Right? Like, it just have, for other people, it's in the shower. Other people listen to music and dance. Like, whatever that thing is for you, to just kind of disconnect, the solution will come to you.
Yes. I love that. You're your greatest resource. You have to resource yourself, and running and pets and being out in nature. It's so
Yeah.
rewarding. It's a great way to resource yourself
Yes.
and going right back to the source. Right.
Yeah. And
Yeah.
so, when you take that rest, you have space to come back to it. You're refreshed.
Mm.
And if you're still stuck, you can be probably like, well, what's going on? Just check in with yourself. What's going on? I like to do a brainstorm.
Mhm.
We're like, oh, this is the problem. So we're naming what our frustration is. We're naming what the overwhelm is. We're very, very clear. Mine might be, I have too many ideas,
Mhm.
right? Like, because that's a real problem for some of us.
Yes.
And then, all right, what can I do about it? So, and then you make a list of all the things that you can do about when you're overwhelmed, when you're frustrated, when you have too many ideas, not enough time, whatever the problem. And then out of that list, you're like, oh, focus on one thing at a time might be an answer. And so that's what you're going to do. You're not, okay, I have too many ideas. Let's focus on one at a time.
Yes.
Right. Sure, I can write a book, work on my book during the day, and make art, but I'm not going to do both at the same time.
Right. Right. Okay.
Right. You're not going to tune into a radio station, 2 radio stations at the same time, because you're not going to hear anything. You're going to hear static. So
Yeah.
focus on that one thing, even if it's just for an hour or two. Like, it does, some steps don't take very long. Writing 500 words takes me maybe an hour.
Wow. Mhm.
Right? Because I'm focused. I'm sitting down for the next hour. All I'm doing is focusing on my book.
Yes.
And that's what I do. And then after that hour's over, all right, what do I want to do now? If you don't have a structure and figure it out for yourself already, because you like to be more free flowing, that's me. Then, all right, what do I want or need to do now that would move my goal forward, that would bring me joy? I'm a big fan of making sure that we have joy in the day.
Yeah.
Because that's important. That's where your momentum actually really lives.
Yes.
Because if you're not excited about your goal, if you're not excited about those steps you need to take to achieve your goal and have that joy in the process, go back to the first step, which is write about what you want to be, do, and have.
Yes.
And so, yeah, you're in that overwhelm, make the brainstorm. What's the problem? Make a list of possible solutions on how you could tackle that. Pick one, do that. And if that doesn't work, go back to your list, try something else.
Yes. It sounds like, you're working through your mind matrix by getting it out on paper and just, what is that matrix? What's going on here? What's that map going on? Yeah.
I'm a huge fan of journaling too, because especially when I'm frustrated, I run when I'm angry and I write when I'm frustrated.
Ah, you know yourself so well. Yeah.
I run because the energy, I can release the energy a lot faster and just pound that trail a little bit harder and just kind of really let go of it. Because I'm a fan of feeling my anger, but I also know we need to release it, because when we hang on to it, that's not good for us.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I come home with the frustration. I'm still frustrated when I get home though, right? Like, I didn't necessarily come up with an answer on my run, because all I'm focusing on is releasing this hard emotion at that particular moment. So I'm frustrated. So I go to my journal and I write it out. Why am I frustrated? and uncensored. And that is a big thing to overcome, is to really write uncensored, because again, we are our own worst critic, and we might be too scared to be honest with ourselves.
Yeah.
And so when you allow yourself to write uncensored about your frustration, all of a sudden you're like, oh, well, I could do that. And you have a solution.
Here it comes. Yes.
And all of a sudden that frustration, you're like, oh, because it is about being more practical. You have to be able to detach yourself a little bit from the problem. And that's what I do. I step aside and sort of look at it from the outside in. I call it the hexagon view.
Okay.
Looking at it from all sides.
Yes.
How do I feel about it? How would my partner look at it if he had this scenario? What would my kid do if he had the scenario? What would my best friend say if she was in this scenario? So sort of kind of getting that, because we know those people, so we know how they answer. At least I hope we do. And then you have all these different perspectives, and we're like, oh, okay. Well, I like my best friend's answer on how to deal with that. And yes, logically, you could go to those people and ask them directly if you wanted to. But if you not want to do that, then that's how you could write about it. Like, my best friend would do it this way. My partner would do it this way. My son, who, despite his disabilities, has a really amazing way of solving his own stuff. He's my big inspiration for me. So it's like, what Lennon do? And so that's how I would address it. And his big thing is PMA, positive mental attitude. So we're going to focus on a positive mental attitude and figure out how we're going to solve this problem.
Love it.
He's pretty smart.
Pretty smart. Pretty smart. And you're so wise to bring all of this information in such an easy flow and light and lovely. And so useful too, right? And
well, I want to be useful. I don't love when people say, well, the how will come to you. Well, no, not always. It's okay to give people the how to do the things they need to be doing. And then my goal setting process is my how of teaching you how to set those goals, so that makes sense to you and who you are. Because again, the SMART system may not work for you.
Right. And so that's what you call your personal framework.
Yes.
Yes. Right.
Yeah.
Well, how can people get a hold of you to learn more? Or what kind of offerings do you have?
They can go to therebelsden.com, and that's where they find everything.
Rebelsden.com, place to go. Yeah.
Yep. And they can work with me, whether it's one-on-one or through my group program. So the Rebel Incubator, where we focus on 90 days at a time.
The incubator, I love that word.
Yeah,
that's cool.
Because that's where the hatchlings. That's where we
oh, that's so awesome. Right on. Okay, well, is there any other final words of wisdom that you'd like to impart on the audience today?
Yeah, I would really, don't wait. Stop waiting for the right time. Stop waiting for someday. It doesn't exist on the calendar. And I say this, for 20 years said I would write a book. 20 years, from the time I was 17 until the day my son was diagnosed with this rare genetic disorder, I said, one day I'm going to write a book. And then we go to the doctors while we're in a hospital, and the doctor is like, this is what your son has. And untreated, it's fatal. And it was untreated for 4 years. So it's been the realization that at any point my son could have died in the process. Realize it's that wonderful cliche of life is too short, because it really, really is.
Well, time's not a renewable resource, right?
No, it's not going to be here tomorrow.
Yeah.
So if you have 15 minutes a day, an hour a day, whatever time you have, use that instead of scrolling through social media, instead of doing something that's not important to you. Focus on what's important to you and start taking action and getting out into the world. Josh wrote a blog post about it where I'm like, listen, ride that wave of inspiration. When that idea comes to you, it's meant for you. It's for you, not the person next to you or somebody else has already done it. This is literally coming to you, and you owe it to yourself to explore it and bring it into the world.
That's beautiful. Ride the wave of inspiration. I think that just about sums up everything you said.
Yes.
Yes, and just do it. Why not? Right?
Yeah, why not?
Yeah.
If I would have questioned everything in my entire life, I probably wouldn't be in this States.
Yes. Well, I'm so glad that you are in this space and that you came here today, zooming in from
Yeah,
Virginia to share all of these amazing tips. So, I
yeah.
mean, there's so much more too, obviously, at the Rebels Den. So do check that out. I'll put the links in the show notes as well. And I am so happy that you are here. And to all of you that have been listening and watching on Wise Women Wednesdays, thank you.
Thanks for having me.
Absolutely. Bye for now.